Hi, this is David DeSanto from Shattered Tabletop Games, and you're listening to Oops, We Broke the Multiverse.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Interviews from the Multiverse. I'm your host, Anthony O'Neill. To my right, as always, is Shawn Cruz. And again, to my right is Anthony Gaba. With us today is Dave DeSanto. Dave, welcome and thank you for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too, man. We got a lot of questions for you today. So just bear with us because we all like peruse this game and we all had like a million questions. We're like, oh, this looks cool. Like, we like how you did this. We like how you guys do this. So let's start it off simple. Tell us about yourself, Dave.
Well, my name's David, or hey, that guy. I respond to most things. I've been playing role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games specifically, for the better part of 20 years now. Got into it fairly early. My dad taught me and my siblings how to play, which was a lot of fun. I also remember our first adventure going way too overboard and like getting graph paper and trying to map out the dungeon we were going through, and it didn't matter. I've been part of a regular gaming group where we met in person almost every week for a good portion of that, at least 10 years of that. And I found that through that regular meeting, a lot of really cool life change stuff happens. Being able to do life and all that stuff with a core group of people around you. And being able to do something like a tabletop role-playing game is easy to deal with problems without actually dealing with the problem, if that makes sense at all.
It does, yeah.
Through that, me and my core group at the time put together this game, Shattered Dawn. We went through a lot of playtesting, all that stuff. We kickstarted it, got funded, ran through our first print run. All was pretty great. And then, the standard stuff usually gets in the way. People, have kids, move away, new things come up. And so our initial group kind of dwindled to just me and our content director, Andrew. And we kind of took a pretty hard pause just because of all that stuff. And so we took a 6-month break, and on the way to a demo, I got in a car accident, which wasn't life-threatening at all, but it was definitely something that made me kind of reevaluate what we were doing. And so we decided, mostly me, decided that we were going to start a podcast, because then we could demo the game online for people. We could have things that we didn't have to actively go to somewhere to show people how the game played or was ran. And so that's how we started our Shattered Dungeons podcast. We've been doing that for the better part of 2 years now. I think just over, actually. And it's been going really well. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Nice. And speaking on the Shattered Dungeons, where can you find that at? Is it on like Spotify or?
Yep. Any place you would go to listen to a podcast. Just type in Shattered Dungeons and we are the only thing listed. So,
okay, perfect. Yeah. Lucky. Yeah.
Somewhat. We went through a couple naming ideas where we really just wanted to put something on that was so unique that, if you searched it, it popped up. So
yeah, hence oops, we broke the multiverse.
Yes, I completely get that.
All right, now can you explain to us and the listeners what is Shattered Tabletop Games? Like, is it like it's three different games, correct? Or is it like multiple ones?
That's our company. So Shattered Tabletop Games is the company that we do all of our stuff through. So we Shattered Dawn is our flagship product. And then we have the podcast, Shattered Dungeons. And then we have also developed several other tabletop games that we haven't put out for Kickstarter yet, just because we've been focused on trying to grow our audience right now. And then we actually just got the first draft of our first full-fledged novel yesterday from our content director. So
Hell yeah.
lots of fun things.
Yeah. Awesome. Shawn, you want to take over?
Sure. So today we'd like to, I mean, you got a lot going on there, and we'd love to hear more about the novel as well. But we're here to talk about Shattered Dawn, second edition.
Yes.
So give us your elevator speech. Like, what is the premise of the game? What's the overview of the game?
Yeah. Fun fact, from the first Kickstarter, I do have a narrated voiceover pitch that explains the whole thing that I don't think I've looked at in 2 years. And now that you say that, I need to get back and like do the second edition version of it. But Shattered Dawn is a classless role-playing game focused on storytelling and quick character creation. So if you are looking to get into role-playing anything, role-playing game, role-playing video game, whatever it is, if you're looking to have a story told and be part of that story, Shattered Dawn was designed to be something you can pick up and jump into without much, chaos or learning how to play. That's it in a nutshell. We use the same dice roll for everything. You pick up traits as you level up, so you can develop whatever character you want to play, regardless of limitations or anything like that. And honestly, it's just our content director has done such a great job with the lore of the game. You can really, I think they're in our core rule book. There's like 50 pages dedicated to just world building, which is not like this happened, then this happened. It's written like a narrative thing. So it's really, really cool. So that's my pitch in a nutshell of what the game is and how it works. But to put it in perspective, on our podcast, we do community nights once a month where people who have been watching the show or have heard about it or just want someone to play with, they can sign up and jump in. And usually we meet at 9 p.m. through Discord to make characters, and then we are playing at 9:30. So it is not like you have to do a whole bunch to figure out how to play this game. But also, every character that's made is, for the most part, really unique, unless you have someone who just, I do the same thing over and over again. Then it's not that unique. But we've had characters who don't take any combat traits, who literally just talk their way through things, hide behind rocks, and somehow it works. And then the people that are very classically combat oriented, fighting in very different ways. We had one guy on a community night episode remove a femur from somebody and use it as a throwing object. And that's how he fought. He would just go pick up bones and throw them at people. And it was very silly, but it was very fun. But that's kind of how we kind of jump into it. It's designed to be, you pick up, you sit down, you go. I know for a lot of games, it's not as simple as just sitting down and going. There's usually a lot more in-depth character creation process. You usually have to have that session 0 where you're like, oh, what are you going to play? What are you going to play? Well, I'll do whatever. What do you want? And then that usually is a whole game night, is just making characters, or developing a backstory or something like that. With Shattered Dawn, you can really do it in about 15 minutes flat, top to bottom. So it's, and then the rules, like I said, it's just the same die roll for everything. And then you add whatever bonus is applicable to that situation. As far as, watching it played, if you are listening to this and you're like, man, I don't know, I would encourage you to go check out any one shot from Shattered Dungeons. We do not make characters beforehand. We literally make them the 30 minutes leading up to a game session, and then we're going. So I don't think we've ever had, except our major character arcs in that show, someone come in with a pre-made character concept. Usually it's like, I was thinking about 4 different things. What do you guys think I should do? And then we make it happen. So
that kind of illustrates how easy it is to create a character, right? speaking of that character creation, so there appears to be kind of a wide variety of species and races in the game. Um, so give us a little bit about that. I mean, in the booklet, there's pre-made character sheets, which seems pretty straightforward. Maybe since we're talking about it, first let's talk about what is that character creation involved. You get your character creation sheet in front of you, and then how long does it take to plug in all those stats or build that character?
Yeah, most of it is just writing down information that's already written in the book. So character creation is broken down into really 3 steps. 4 if you're being a little too overeager. The first step or choice that you make is what species you want to play as. And there are a number of them. I think we have, golly, I want to say 13, but I think I might be wrong in that.
And so in the book, the images, right, repeat on the bottom of each page. And I was like, wait, there's a lot. And then you read through and you're okay, there's not that many, but there's still quite a few and very different as well.
Yeah, we have there. So in the core game, there are 12 playable species that you can start as, but they're in the full core book. There are also monstrous characters that you can be later that, they're a little bit more complicated than these ones. And then we have been working on an expansion to it that grants 3 more playable races that are just like these, the standards. And I won't get into much of that today. So you go through and you make your choice of what species you want to play. Each one has a pretty rich history as far as how they came to be, what their relation is to others. Most of the species are all homogenized under the rule of what is called the Aluan patriarchy. And so there isn't necessarily like, this species is from this place. It's everybody is all over the place everywhere because the patriarchy has sent so many things all over and is currently dominating the world in a pretty horrific way. So once you select your species, each species has a benefit. For example, the Lamkai, which are effectively possessed demon children, get a bonus to their sneaking ability. So you would just notate that on your character sheet. And then once you've chosen that, you have to choose what's called advancements. Advancements are the traits that would define your character. Everyone can pretty much do everything from the get-go without a bonus. But advancements would grant your character a bonus to doing certain things. For instance, if you want them to be good at sneaking, like we were talking about with the Lamkai, there's an advancement you can take for that gives you a bonus to sneaking. So you get 2 advancements every level. You can choose whichever ones you want, really. So before we got on to do this, I was actually making my character for our Arc 2.5 mini-series, which is usually when I get to take a break from running our podcast. And my character is modeled after Kif from Futurama. We're going to be silly with this one. And so I had to go through.
Can you do the Kif voice?
I don't know about that. Maybe close.
There you go.
Thanks. So we're going to, I'll be playing that character, and I decided he was going to use elementalism, which is fire, ice, and electricity type of spells. And then also be kind of like a bard. So he's going to be able to play guitar, which means I'm going to have to sing in that voice at some point during the mini-series. So I took those 2 as my advancements. I'm level 1. That makes the most sense for what I'm trying to play. After that, it's really just plugging in equipment and writing down how much health, stamina, and potency you have. Those 3 things are effectively your only character attributes. Health is your health. If you get to 0, you're dead. There's no like saving against that. You just flat out die. You do have an unconscious thing, which if you really want, I can get into, but after health, you have stamina, which is your physical endurance, things like that. And then your potency, which is your magical aptitude. Both stamina and potency regenerate every turn. So they're not like a finite resource that you're going to run out of. Sorry. Finite resource that you're going to run out of. It's going to be something that regenerates that you can use pretty often. And then each one of those comes with a check. So where in something like Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, you have your saves, fortitude, reflex, all that. That's kind of all encompassed into these two pools. So a stamina check would be a dodge, like you're trying to resist a poison. Potency check would be something like someone's firing a spell at you and you have to, deflect the spell or use a counter spell. That's kind of how that plays. And all of this is a roll of 1d100. And then you can add bonuses, stuff like that. And then after that, you're done. That's character creation.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go into, you kind of highlighted a couple of the races, species for us.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a couple more, highlight a couple more for us.
Yeah, I'll kind of do some chronology
into some of the cool ass species they can be.
So the lore itself and the species, all of this originate with the Norethel. Think of them as like the original elves. For those of you who have played Dungeons and Dragons or like Lord of the Rings, stuff like that. They are one of the oldest species in our world. They sought perfection. And so in doing so, they spent a lot of time researching and a lot of time conquering because they thought they were the best. But really, they're not. Twist. Haha. So the Norethel, over time, conquered their lands. They named things, almost everything that is commonplace originates from the Norethel. And then through a seafaring adventure where a boat gets knocked off course, they end up running into this species called the Ilrias, and think of them as cat people. And they have this ability to use magic, and the Norethel hadn't realized that they could do that, hadn't heard anything about it, hadn't developed anything. They've just been, making weapons and killing things and saying, haha, we win for everything. And so they arrive, and the Ilrias have these massive cities like coexisting with nature, and they're using magic, and the Norethel say, well, these guys pose a threat, they could take us on. And so they go to the surrounding lands of the Ilrias and meet with the Basilican, which are like lizardy snake people who live in the waterways and things like that. And the Dargoth, which are 12-foot tall, hulking barbarian, like think a horned orc that is also a giant, translucent skin. They're very unique, and they're very fun to play. And so they basically say, hey, we'll give you guys weapons if you fight for us, and then you can take on these guys that, have all this stuff and you guys have nothing. And so they end up doing that. They take the Ilrias as captives. They force the Ilrias to teach them the ways of magic. And through that, they end up conquering the rest of the known world. And so after several centuries, you have archmages of various colleges researching how to attain immortality. And then they devise these different experiments. And through these experiments, they end up creating these other species. So Risan, which are effectively like your standard humanoids, they are created, and they have different bonuses based on the region in which different groups of them were created. And then you have the Underlings, which were another experiment gone wrong, and those are kind of like dwarves. They are miners, they live underground, but while they're underground, they are hairless and pale because there's no sunlight, no pigmentation, stuff like that. And so once they move into a more sunlight filled life, then they start developing the standard things you would see on a dwarf like character. But that's one of my favorite images to show people is the I think it's on page 6, but the underling that is completely bald, wearing like peasant clothes. Like, yeah, there you go.
Just imagining like a naked Gimli right now. Just
Yeah,
hairless Gimli.
think like Gollum, but a little bit more stout. It's kind of terrifying. Yeah. And then that's kind of the gist for a lot of those created species. And then you have branches of Norethel who realize what they've done is wrong. And so they seek these other ways of living, of kind of taking the Illyria's mindset of being one with the world around them. So you get the Woethel, who is like the tree dwellers, stuff like that. Then you have the Solethel, which in my opinion are that's probably one of my favorite species to play as. The Norethel stem from one Ethel. Her name was Mivra, and she directly opposed the patriarchy in a major way. And so because she effectively refused to do all these horrific experiments on people, she was outcast to these volcanic lands to the south of the world. And in doing so, she kind of cursed her and her entire family. And so from her, she taught her family how to undergo a transformation to deal with the volcanic world that they were forced to kind of domain they were living in. And so they became resistant to fire and their lifespan shortened. They started to blend in with the ash and soot around them. And through that, you have this matriarchal society that begins to develop because of this. She was Norethel. They became the Solethel. Because of her sacrifice, she was able to save her and her entire her family, you know. And so that's a really neat kind of twist to what the rest of the world is doing. You have all these all these organizations that are, you know, the stereotypical strongman leaders, and then you have the Solethel, which are effectively like not warrior princesses, but kind of warrior princesses. And they're just, that whole society is so cool. And then the patriarchy is what kind of has all the power in the world. And there's this country that technically is kind of under the jurisdiction of the patriarchy. It's called Velicium. And their leader was the original archmage of the college of the patriarchy. And so he was actually the one of the descendants of the first person to learn magic in the Norethel society. And so he's undergone all these horrific transformations. He's got like these black bat wings. He like doesn't have an essence anymore. He can like hear people's thoughts. He's kind of gruesome, but his whole country exists as a nation of slaves and captives. And they're kind of all forced to do anything that he wants. And so he has cities dedicated to these like societal experiments. He has entire groups of people that look nothing like they should because of his just various experimentation. Like his own essence feeds off the actual land that he resides in. And so it's like as soon as you cross the border, you can just feel life seeping from you. And so we use that character in that country a lot for like the random monsters you would find in the game. There are a lot of creatures that were like Nathaniel, who's the character I'm talking about, was at it again, and look what he created. Good luck. This thing's got 6 arms made of bone and, you know, eats flesh. So good luck.
So this is the motherfucker we're trying to kill and overthrow, I imagine, in the game. Is that right?
Somewhat. I don't think there's
and it's okay if you want to cuss. It's that kind of podcast.
I appreciate that. There is not anyone who is considered good in our game, and that was a choice we made.
Ooh.
So no matter what you look at it, any of the non-player characters or like the notable people of our world aren't inherently good. Most have some sort of bad streak of some way, shape, or form. So that's a lot of fun to play with because, you know, everyone's got a dark side.
That's yeah, we're playing Blades in the Dark right now, and I'm running that game. I don't know if you've played it.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it played
yet. But in that
though.
game, everybody's a piece of shit, and that's how you play it. It's pretty fun. All right, so you kind of alluded to some parts of different countries, things like that. Tell us about the world we're in. Are we on Earth? Are we in some, you know, the fantasy world? So kind of describe the world in general to us. What's the game setting here?
So the world is named Erethe. It does look a lot like Earth, granted. And we wanted to name it something similar to Earth so it has a familiar tone to it. The world itself is a fantasy world. So it is one that we developed. You have a northern and a southern continent with a giant island nation in the middle. All are broken out into 7 different courts or countries, if you will. Each one has their own kind of leader or organization that runs the country, but then all of them through an apocalypse event, I would call it, end up swearing fealty to the Aeluan patriarchy once again. At one point, they were kind of removed from power. And then they were the ones who finally defeated the creature that was invading the world from an alternate dimension, rather. And so because of that, they kind of had the ability to stake some claim in a major way, and so they did. And the creature that was fought off is not quite dead, but has began to drive the patriarch, the leader of the known world, into madness. And so over the years, he's gotten crazier and more reclusive and a little bit eviler as time has gone on. And at the point where you are introduced to the world, present day, if you will, he has put something in place called the reaping. And the reaping is every 7 years, each country has to pay 1,000 gold for every free citizen, or offer those that they can't pay for as sacrifice. And then they are marched into the... Yeah. And it's not like, all right, we're going to shoot them in the street. They're literally taken by boat back to the Aeluan, which is the city the patriarchy is based in. And they are cast through a portal into that alternate dimension I was talking about earlier, where they are literally torn apart by creatures that are very monstrous and grotesque.
Now that would be a good sequel to Hunger Games.
Yeah. So our second arc for the podcast, we began playtesting our expansion with that season. And so the very first episode is one of the players being thrown through that gate for the reaping and appearing on the other side. The whole group that had been sacrificed is getting torn apart by these demon dogs, basically. And then, you know, he goes to run and there's this hooded figure coming after him and he thinks he's dead. And then he ends up getting saved by the hooded figure and kind of inducted into this group of misfits. I
hope this guy's like the one guy who's like, I bet there's nothing on the other side, you guys. They just make that up to keep us under control. He gets on the other side. He's like, fuck. So getting ripped apart around.
Yeah, he's like, what have I done? He was very much a pirate, so I'm sure he was very prideful in that regard. But that whole dimension is where like magic originates from, and so you have these creatures there that are literally able to move rocks and mountains and stuff with their thought. And then he doesn't have a magical bone in his body. And so he's this like completely out of place person. Like people are walking by and they're like, oh, I feel like nothingness from you. And it was very funny to watch that happen because he would occasionally try to use magic, but it would never work. So
That's pretty rad and a cool concept to kind of see the other side of that.
mm-hmm.
So in the game, you're describing, it as carefully crafted for storytelling. So what does
Mm-hmm.
that mean exactly? Is this just a role-playing game, or is there, I read that you play with minis and dice and all that good stuff. So it's not just storytelling, but so what did you mean by carefully crafted for storytelling?
So a lot of the mechanics that we developed, we kept the idea of telling a story at the front of our minds. It's very easy with polyhedral dice sets to just use those. But what we found with a lot of people that we play tested with who had never really played a game with polyhedral dice, that it was very confusing for them to start with. And so oftentimes, going back to my years of experience teaching games before, I always came back to that. Here's the dice you roll. Start with this one, and then we'll figure out the others based on what that roll is. And so taking that into account, one of the things I really liked about some video games is that your damage is, in some video games, is a constant. Like it's a listed damage rating. And I thought that was a cool idea, because if I hit you with my sword and like I'm a trained combatant, yeah, there's some, variables that go into that would lessen or improve the damage. But if I hit you with a weapon and I know how to hit you with a weapon, then I'm probably going to, my range of damage is probably like this, not like this. And so that's why we don't have a damage roll. There are things in the game that allow you to adjust your damage, but if you hit, then you're going to deal a certain level of damage. With all of our abilities and skills and stuff like that, which are honestly, I want to say there's 7 abilities and like a handful of skills, but the skills are attained at higher levels if you want them. Those are all just, you roll your D100 and you add whatever that bonus is. And then with spellcasting, we kind of like the idea of having not like a per day type of situation. Like if you know magic and there's magic in the world around you, you can kind of draw upon that at any given moment and just do your thing. And so we have the stamina and potency pools regenerate so that you can constantly be using, physical endurance or spellcasting to assist you in whatever you're doing. And then as far as the mechanics of how the game plays, there isn't a lot of going and looking up how a rule works. It's, for the most part, the same type of relationship. We use opposed rolls for a lot of stuff. And then there are 2 other variations on that. We use a percentage roll towards the bottom, and then an additive bonus where you would roll and just add your bonus. Percentage rolls are things like mischance. That's a great concept. Someone rolls to attack and the attack connects, but maybe you have some kind of force field or some sort of inherent dodge ability that even though they're connecting with you, you're able to lessen or negate the damage completely. And so that's a low roll. And then for the other one I was just talking about that I just spaced on, those opposed rolls, that's what they were, are like sneaking. So if I'm going to try and sneak against you, we both roll sneak checks, and whoever's higher succeeds. So if I win and I'm trying to sneak, then I'm hidden. And if you win while I'm trying to sneak, then I'm not hidden. That kind of relationship. So most things are some kind of play on those 3 relationships as far as determining outcomes and stuff like that. Because we didn't want a Cold War effect is what we playfully referenced it as, where you guys, if you've ever played Magic the Gathering, I'm sure we've all had that thing where it's like, I do this, well, I do that, and you do this, and I do that, ha 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 ha, and it's just yeah, we didn't want that to happen, and so everything is pretty straight on that front. But that's kind of what we meant by carefully crafted for storytelling. All of this takes place so quickly And even if someone doesn't know what it is, it's just, oh, well, it's probably this, and they're probably right. And so you can just kind of move through it without having to constantly pull a book out or scroll through a PDF or whatever and find the one sentence that says it one time in a 400 or in a 200-page book and, haha, cite my resource. So.
I like that. Yeah, and gives way to the rules, lawyers, and things like that going on throughout the game.
Yeah, so literally in the first page, it's like whatever the Arc Master, which is what we call our Dungeon Master, whatever they say is correct. Like this is pointless. It's their story to tell.
I like that. And that actually brings me to my next question. So in this game, we have an Arc Master, and that's kind of your Dungeon Master, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is their role as a storyteller? Because this game is more about storytelling, how do they differ from, say, a Dungeon Master? How are they running the game?
Not much is quite different in terms of like the practicality of it. We chose to change Dungeon Master or Game Master to Arc Master because we wanted to instill that sense of storytelling from the get-go. If I tell you that we're going to be playing an arc, that sounds a little bit more narrative than, hey, we're going to play a module, and that was kind of our thought process there. And so in our starter kit, which is available online through DriveThruRPG, in that you get a couple pre-made characters, you get an abridged rule book that has all of the rules in the game, just only advancements to level 6. 50 is the max level. But you also get an introductory arc. And in each one of our arcs, we have the first, I think it's like 4 paragraphs. What is Shattered Dawn? And then it explains what Shattered Dawn is. And then what's an arc? And very succinctly, an arc is a story designed for play sessions. That's it. At the core of what it is, it's a story that's being told that players are interacting with. And so the one that comes with our starter kit is basically levels 1 through 6. And you have your first one where you're part of the reaping and you crash, the boat crashes and you have to make your escape. And then you find a city, and then you have to kind of figure out a way of life within the city.
That intro there, that's a fun way to be like, this is a real danger. The reaping's a real thing, and you're actually escaping. The stakes are already high. You hit the ground running at level 1.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we wanted to do is introduce that concept to kind of, it really does help set the tone of the world that you're playing in. I can't tell you how many times I ran that arc specifically at conventions and things. And everyone's in it from the first, prologue as you're reading the lead up to the story. Everyone's like, oh, okay, this isn't like Skittles and rainbows. All right. But as far as running the game, you're still telling a story. You still have to have an idea of what's happening. You still make those judgment calls in the moment. And you still have, your role leading the game is to create a session that's engaging and entertaining. And there are millions of videos out there on how to be a dungeon master, how to run games well, all that stuff, little tropes to avoid, things like that. But at the end of the day, I felt that by calling it Arc Master instead of Dungeon Master, you're already in a different mindset when you pick up the book, and the way it's written is not, hey, here's a room, here's all the things in the room. It's, hey, here's the thing you read aloud to your players. Every scene has one of those. And then it's information about the scene or situation. So the scene 1 in the opening thing, the first sentence is, the crowd you stand in is littered with many different types of species from different walks of life. Many are slaves. The black sails of the Reaper's ship seem to drain the energy of the crowd the closer they get. And that's the intro to the session. That's the first thing most players are hearing, is the Arc Master beginning the story that they're going to be playing for the session or the several sessions, depending on how long they go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so now let's pretend that Anthony and I are players,
Mm-hmm.
right? What is our experience and what's our role in this game? So you just gave us that setting, right?
Yeah.
Now, okay, you're kind of like and scene, and we, we start to, I imagine, and we'll compare this to Dungeons and Dragons a lot because that's what
Sure.
that's kind of the gateway drug, right? Everybody
Yeah,
knows
exactly. That's the industry standard. Yeah.
That's right. So then get me out of that Dungeons and Dragons mindset and say, okay, as a player, am I okay? I'm going to ask questions. Okay, is there a guard? Am I shackled? Like, do you let the players kind of explore, or how do they play this game after you lay down that awesome hook?
Yeah, it's pretty much that. They are the characters in the story, and so usually the dialogue ends with some kind of information to play off of. For instance, the end of that first scene. Let me find it. The ship. There's an explosion on the ship. You're thrown from the ship. You land in the shallows nearby. Another explosion rocks the ship and sends soldiers and slaves alike flying from the boat. You have no idea what's happening, but you know that this is the chance for you to escape the reaping. And so from that point, it's kind of, I need to escape. Escaping is probably the course of action that's recommended. But there are also soldiers that are getting up in the shallows and probably going to pursue anyone trying to escape. And that would be information that the Arcmaster has in front of them that, if the players do X, then Y happens. But more often than not, the Arcmaster's goal is to really improv, if you will, with the players for what the players are doing. Taking this single scene, like I said, I've run this one specifically a whole bunch of times. More often than not, someone tries to drown a soldier in the shallow water. It's just something that comes up on a regular basis for some reason. When we wrote that,
something that comes up for us is that guy that's getting drowned, that guard.
No, like most players, like most players, once I end that thing and, they're trying to rush off into the wilderness and there's guards nearby, everyone sees, oh, I'm in a fight. I'm going to drown that guy. Like, okay, didn't expect that, but all right. We've had people, do all manner of things that you can imagine in an open world role-playing game, from running to fighting, to try and swim back out to sea, to try and gather supplies, to talk their way through situations, to encourage the guards that we're actually more powerful than we are, so you probably shouldn't try and kill us and we'll let you live. We've had guys pee on people. It was
damn, like there's a big battle going, everybody's escaping the ship, there's just a dude whizzing on a guard.
It's a power move for sure.
Power move, yeah. Don't fuck with that guy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I know everyone's wet and dirty, but that's just gross. So we do have that relationship of the players wanting to go and do something, whatever they deem fit for their character, for themselves, or for the group as a whole. And then the Arcmaster's role, again, as storyteller, is to let's play this out narratively. If for that guy peeing on somebody, his goal was to try and wet the sand enough to where he could push him easier, which, whatever. And so there was I'm
sure he's got science to back that up.
Yeah, sure. Lots of lab studies. But in that situation, as an Arcmaster, I don't want to say no because it's very inventive.
Yes,
but also I can't just say, yeah, it works. So
he
what
slides
happens?
like a bowling ball across the beach.
Exactly. There's got to be something at stake for that action to take place.
80% of like how I play every single game is just like I'll come up with something crazy and cool and narratively, for the listener, it looks awesome or sounds awesome. But in reality, it's just like, shut the hell up, Anthony O'Neill. Shut your goddamn mouth so we can keep playing.
I know that feeling on both sides.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very much, that improv type of relationship. you want to keep things fun and entertaining, and sometimes that means, all right, roll a stamina check for peeing on this guy. So the advantage
that's a crit. Nice long natural pee, no urine smell. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have asparagus the night before, so you're good.
And actually, it's quite clear. You're very hydrated.
Oh, good. That's good. Yeah, salt water hasn't affected you at all.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of the idea. Obviously, there are rules. There are, logistical things that should be known the longer you play. But we don't want the people playing to have to rely on those things. We want things to be taking a back seat if the story is worthwhile, And the rules help as having a central point to break ties or friction. So a great example is the concept of lying, right? I'm sure everyone's had a game that they've been in or played or been the person who is trying to lie to another player, and the player absolutely knows that this is a bold-faced lie, but their character doesn't. And so how do you resolve that? That's, again, one of the great examples of why we did the opposed role thing. Each person has a speech ability, which you can use to lie. Opposed roles, whoever wins means the other person believes they are telling the truth. So in scenarios like that, it's really great because then you can just, yeah, you're right. He's telling a lie, but your character believes he's telling the truth. And you can point to dice rolls and say, you need to get new dice, bro. So
that settles that. Yeah. Well, so to play the game, you were talking, about the dice. You don't use the traditional D20, kind of Dungeons and Dragons setup, right? So what is the dice setup for this game? I thought it was really unique how you guys figured that out.
I have one around here somewhere. I just need to find it.
You might be sitting on it. They're pretty large.
Yeah. So now most people, that was one thing I remember talking about specifically with our team. I'm going to open this brand new polyhedral dice set. So yeah,
podcast
really getting in here. And this is much stronger than I thought it would be. So it's taking a lot longer.
Get it with your teeth.
Yeah. So there you go. Sounds of dice on wood. So yeah, most people play with a role-playing game with all 7 or 6 if you're missing that percentile dice. We actually use, for our D100, the percentile and the 10. And so triple zeros we play as being natural 100. So the values you can roll are 1 through 100 instead of 0 to 99. So you really just roll these 2. And so here I got a 94.
Look at you. Show off.
90.
I like that I didn't have to buy one of those big ass, because there are D100s. But you made it to where hey, folks, you already have this. You probably already have this sitting in your bag of dice there, right? So great. You don't have to go buy a thing. Here you go. You've already got it.
Exactly. Because with a lot of things, I forget what it's called, but the price you got to pay to get in, paywall, I don't know what it is. That can be pretty high for role-playing games specifically.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I'm moving this. Sorry, podcast listeners, you get to hear all my desk things falling.
Everything's falling down in the room. Oh my God.
I'm failing my checks. Oh no. So we wanted it to be something that they could pick up with existing things and do. Really, and even in this day and age, you don't even need necessarily anything but our rule book to play. We use, for our podcast, we use Roll20. It's got a built-in dice roller, built-in maps, tokens, the whole 9 yards, and it's free. So that's an easy avenue to go if you want to do an actual virtual board, playing on a physical table. Most people who do that have polyhedral dice. So you're right, they already have the dice needed to play. Most of them will have miniatures of some kind, or at least tokens. In our physical copy of the starter kit, which is right here for those watching. Too much light.
Ooh, that's pretty.
Yeah.
By the way, kudos on the artwork.
Thank you.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, we worked long and hard with a number of artists on that stuff.
It turned out beautiful. And since you're talking about the maps, that was going to be a question of mine. In the book, there are some great maps you guys included that are well thought out, well placed, and the artwork's really good. Are those specific maps available on Roll20? Or can you get electronic versions of them for Roll20 or remote gaming?
I would love to put them up there. However, I haven't figured out how to do that yet.
Gotcha. Okay.
But when we release the full book, one of the things we were going to put in there is poster sides maps for anyone playing on a tabletop.
Physical gaming, yeah.
And so my kind of relegated that to the same time frame when the full book comes out, being able to upload those.
Awesome.
But yeah, those maps, I was very proud of how they came out. It's always great when you have an artist who you can be like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's my crappy drawing. Can you make this nice, please? So
that's Shawn.
There you go.
Yeah.
You did. Yeah, you guys did amazing. And I mean, the concept, I know you drew like a circle and you're like, here, put a house right here. Like it's laid out well. It's laid out very well.
Very good.
Thank you.
So let's talk about combat.
Yeah.
How does combat work in your game in Shattered Dawn?
So for most people who are, I would say, veterans of role-playing games, it's not going to feel like we've reinvented the wheel. It begins with initiative, which is to determine the order in which everyone takes their turns. Each turn is about 10 seconds long. And then you can do two things in a variety of orders. You can move and you can do something. So each character can move 8 squares on their turn, and then they can also attack or cast a spell or climb a rope or yell something at somebody. You can drink 4 potions. And potions aren't like, big 18-ounce big gulps or anything like that. They're legitimately just like vials.
I just got a flashback of the band show back in the day, and the guy that just chugged.
Oh, yes. No, these are like shots, basically. So,
Tinctures.
Yeah. Yes. So, I mean, there's a whole slew of things that you can do, but you can break it up however you want. So you can move 4 squares, do your attacks, and then move the other 4.
Oh, that's nice. And anybody can do it any variety of ways. They can mix it up. Like, there's no set turn order. Like, you can just, here's your bunch of shit you can do. Divvy it up how you want.
Yeah, it's however you want to do your turn. And the reason we didn't put in like phases or when something has to happen is because it bogs everything down. At the end of the day, can I do this is not a question I want someone to ask while they're playing this game. What I want them to do is say, I want to do this, and then figure it out on the back end. And so one of those is like
that he'll go nuts. I don't want to play this with you anymore.
But now, so with combat specifically, an attack roll is your, to hit. You roll, you add your bonus. If it is higher than their armor rating, you hit and you deal damage. When your target's health gets to 0, they dead. And you can do a number of things, like you can choose to deal half damage if you want, like pull your punches. That way you're, instead of maybe killing someone, you're knocking someone out. You can choose to do non-lethal damage, which again, same concept, with the goal of knocking them out. Or you can, cast one spell. We kind of do things by hands, and so you have 2 hands to work with. So you can make 2 attacks with a light weapon in each hand. Same with spells. You can do 1 spell per hand. And then with heavy weapons and ranged weapons like bows and arrows, you get the 1 attack. But then things like throwing daggers you can do too. We have light crossbows that you can do the old 2 shots with. Crossbow in each hand. Yeah. And then there's a bunch of special attacks that you can pick up as you level up. Things where you can attack everyone in like a 180 degree arc. You can attack everyone in a 360 degree arc. Power attacks are a thing, and they deal double damage with half of your attack bonus. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do, but in its simplest form, you move, you attack, you try to kill people.
Right on. And the baddies, right? They have a similar thing going on. They can move, they can attack, they can pee on you. They can
exactly. It depends on how inventive the Arcmaster is. But yeah, all of the monster creatures in the book are developed using the same rules the players have. So if you look at a dragon, the only thing that they don't have is a level limitation. And so a dragon is like, max level for players is 50, and I think the dragon, there are 2 different types of dragons. I want to say the easy one's level 90. So they have significantly more health. They have a wider breadth of abilities that they can use, and then they also have just more points. So it's not like they're going down as quickly. And the way all of the math works out, fighting and combat in Shattered Dawn is not something that takes 4 hours to do.
Thank God.
Yeah. So I'll use episode 48 of Arc 2 for Shattered Dungeons as my example. I'll even pull up a photo for you. We had this creature, the big creature. Their destiny for the players was to kill this creature. It is not a simple task. They've been working the whole 47 episodes prior to basically getting ready to kill this thing. It is a giant monster, 60 feet tall, covered in hands and eyes with 2 giant pincers. It fades into nothingness, and it consumes the world around it. It is terrifying to say the least, and seeing it on the game board made everyone second guess everything that they had been doing. So
I love it. That's awesome looking.
So that thing is level 300. Awesome. Yeah. And I
pee on it.
Exactly. So I had 5 characters that were level 30, taking on this thing that was level 300.
Okay.
Our episode, yeah, they had a whole army with them, and the whole army got obliterated in the first turn because this thing ate them.
Wow.
And so the whole episode lasted 3 turns for this fight. Okay. The turns were a little long because everyone was freaking out as to what to do and how to do it. And so there was a lot of back and forth role playing. But the synopsis of that episode is on turn 2, the creature threw the giant tank filled with explosives that they had developed to kill this thing. And then on turn 3, one of the characters decided to push down a slight slope the thing filled with explosives and light it on fire and sail the tank into a whirling vortex of dirt and gravel and blow this thing up. That fight, which I would consider probably the toughest fight that any player has ever been in any game I've seen of Shattered Dawn, probably took like 45 minutes.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's better than our fucking 10-man D&D sessions.
Yeah.
6 hours for one fight.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we spent the first 25 minutes of that episode literally dialoguing about where to place some bombs. So making a decision took almost like half as long as the fight itself.
Measure twice, cut once.
Yeah, exactly. And then the thing threw the bombs anyways, so it didn't matter.
Oh, fuck.
But that's one thing as an Arc Master I like to be a little bit vindictive with. So when something like that happens where they've taken a lot of time to do something, I like to exercise how futile some things like that can be. And so it had no other option but to move closer to it. And so if it was going to move closer, it was going to knock it away. But
yeah, the picture he showed us, I guess, for the podcast, is this huge hulking beast with what looked like just a bunch of spikes all up and down its arms, and its back has huge horns. Like it looked
Mhm.
like crazy ass ginormous demon that,
So
that
we
could just
did.
sweep its arm and wipe out an army, right? Like
For real though, for real.
Yeah.
If you go on our social media pages, I think on Instagram we're Shattered Dawn RP. If you search Shattered Tabletop Games, will come up. But it's on. I posted it on Twitter and Instagram, I believe, in the week before or the week of that episode. So as of today, July 30th, it would probably be on like July 9th or something like that.
right on.
So
Okay. Let's see. So the character advancements that you put into the book, kind of give us a quick overview of that. How does that work? How does your character advance?
So you gain experience and you level up just like in most games. Every level, your character gets 3 things. They get 20 pool points, and so they can put those into their health, stamina, potency. So that way they can be a little bit more able to do things or survive longer. Or if you're really dedicated to the bit, don't put any in health and see how long you survive. And then the other 2 things are 2 advancement points. Every advancement costs some either 1, 2, or 3 points to attain. And they do different things. The higher up you go in an advancement tree, the more points it costs, obviously. But the trees are things like light melee, marksmanship, specific schools or studies of magic, sneaking around, blacksmithing, brewing, things like that. Each tree has several advancements within it. In total, I think I have to look it up now. In total, I want to say there's 321 advancements available.
Damn.
I mean, there is a significant amount. 321. I was right. Yeah.
Oh, hey, you know your game.
Yay.
We were talking about that before the show. We were talking about how cool it is that the advancements, the level ups, how you can divvy it out. Like you said, you could even be reckless with it if you wanted to. But that's really fun and different. Like with me, it's like, oh fuck, guys, okay, we got to level up. Let's make some fucking coffee and let's start reading on what my character has to do in D&D to level up. Fuck me,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. Like this one's like, no, I'm building a character a certain way, and I want him to have this, and I want him to be built like this. So you can dump him into however you want to make that very unique character.
Yeah. And we did it in a simple way to fit the theme, 1, but 2, oftentimes I feel like a lot of people hesitate to give someone experience or give a level up during a session. And with this, like, you don't even have to necessarily choose the advancements. You can just grant someone a level and hey, you got 20 points, put them where you want right now. I've done that before where it's like, everyone in a one-shot level 1, everyone's got like 3 health left and they're about to die and they're going into the final fight, and I'm like, I don't want to kill them in the first round and end the night that way. Everyone gets a level up, 20 more points. There you go. Now we can do this fight.
Time, you dum-dums.
And some people don't. Some people putting it in like potency or stamina, like, okay, I guess you didn't pick up on the context clues. Yeah.
Right.
Someone save me. I'm going to cast more spells as we die. But it's also pretty fun because then, you do have those glass cannon type of characters that do a crap load of damage and, can't take a punch to save their life. So, but yeah, the advancements all for the most part aren't necessarily super complicated. Most of them do build on one another. So like if you're looking the book, like light melee again, it's an easy go-to for me. You have martial prowess 1, 2, and then at higher levels 3, 4, and 5, and all of those kind of take the same idea and just change the bonus to be more and more. And then you get access to other things that increase your critical chance or increase how much power attacks cost. They grant you additional attacks if you're doing a certain fighting style, things like that. So some of them are super beneficial to being able to do an ability, but a lot of them take what you can already do and make it easier to do. Whether that be fighting, casting spells, sneaking, talking to people, convincing someone that you are not who you say you are, things like that. So
yeah, right on. Well, why don't you? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I kind of have a follow up to the leveling stuff.
Yeah, go for
it. So for me personally, once I play a game a few times, I kind of start hating starting at level 1 every single time. I like to have the extra stuff to go with my stupid ideas a little easier. How hard would it be to say I wanted to jump in a game at level 25? How hard would it be to do that?
Not particularly hard. You'd have a tougher time making decisions than making your character, if that makes sense. So, excuse me. Basically, at level 25, following the same type of rules, level 1, you start with 20 pool points in each pool. And so at level 25, you would have, gosh, I can't do math, but it's 20 times 49 plus 60. So sorry.
That's okay.
But then you would have 50 advancement points that you can spend for a level 25 character.
Oh, you can just quickly plug those in and be on your way, right?
Yeah, so if you knew what you wanted your character to do already, you could basically just go to that advancement tree and start picking everything you want. And so, for example, for this next for season 3 for Shattered Dungeons, everyone's going to be starting at level 10. And so going through and making a character that's level 10, they only have 20 points to spend. And obviously there's a level restriction on certain advancements, but going through, like, I know some of them will have, again, those martial prowess from the light melee tree, they'll have 1, 2, and 3. And so that's going to be 4 points spent because level 3 costs 2 points. So that's 4 points gone of their 20 to spend. And then someone's probably going to take the advancement that makes power attacks easier, so that's another point spent. And then maybe you don't want just light melee. Maybe you want to be able to do some heavy armor. So that's another probably 3 to 5 points spent there. So now half of your advancement's gone. It's more time consuming than making a level 1 character, obviously, but it's not more complicated necessarily. You just have more options available to you.
Okay, so an extra 30 minutes and some basic math and you're good to go.
Pretty much, yeah.
Not 5 hours to create a level 30 sorcerer in Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, no. So we were doing a play test before we released first edition, which had much higher numbers to work with. And gosh, we were playing at max level, so we had level 50 characters, and my character died because I'm an idiot. And I was like, oh no. And so in 20 minutes, I had another level 50 character, ready to go, equipped and everything. So,
damn,
I like this game way more now.
we encourage you to kill your players. It's not complicated to make a new one, and oftentimes I find that people like creating characters, and so some people might have some to fall back on anyway. So
right on.
Love it.
Yeah, that's that makes it way easier and you can see it in the book when you guys go check it out, like how easy it is to do this.
I may never play Dungeons and Dragons again.
Not the same way, at least, right?
No.
Yeah, honestly, like, I know I'm very biased, obviously, but I am one of the cast members in a once a month podcast called One Crit Blunders, and we play 5th edition D&D on that one, and I don't enjoy it nearly as much. There's like, I've played a couple different characters on it now, and the guy who runs it is on the Shattered Dungeons podcast team, and so he knows both systems as well, and it's one of those things where even he's said to me before, like, man, it's just easier in Shattered Dungeons, like, to get going, or Shattered Dawn rather. But yeah, my character, the one I'm playing now, is a cleric, and I I know I can make the same character in Shattered Dawn and just do it so much easier.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's it's almost our slogan, but like we love D&D, but we're just trying to explore and see what else is out there. And now it's kind of like, God, we're sluts now. We're so much more like, oh man, this is so much easier. I mean, D&D is the foundation, right?
Oh,
It was
yeah.
built that way specifically for a reason, but now it's like everybody else is taking from that and be like, man, why don't you just make character building easier and shit, let people customize it? And I mean, like it's such a renaissance I feel like we're in right now. Is part of the reason we put this podcast on, is we're like, we want to check out all those new different things, because a lot of folks are making a lot of different exciting games and improving upon the gamer experience. So kudos to you guys for finding a great way to do that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. We spent a lot of time working on it.
Yeah. Well, so why don't you give us your top reasons for why the Multiverse Mob, which is our listener community, needs to go and check out your game?
A lot of the same reasons we already talked about. It's easy to jump in and just play. The PDF for the starter kit is only $10 on drive-thru-RPG. You can do Shattered Tabletop Games on that, and we'll pop up. The starter kit, again, $10 PDF, includes an abridged rulebook that has literally all of the game rules. It's just limiting your character to level 6 at the max. It comes with pre-made characters. It comes with tokens to use in Roll20, and it comes with the level 1 to 6 Arcmaster booklet. So that's at least 3 or 4 2-hour sessions if you want to play that. So, and then if you're not into that, but you still want to try it out, we do community nights every month on Shattered Dungeons, and that link to sign up for that is shatteredtabletopgames.com/community days, and it's right down at the bottom there. And that's an easy, free way to jump in and check it out. And then honestly, if you are looking for a game where you can make it as complex as you want it to be, this is definitely the game for you. You can have 100 different skills and abilities, or you can just be really good at one thing. But no matter what experience your table has, whether it's someone who's never played before or someone who's been playing for 40 years, each person can jump in, enjoy, and have a really great time playing. So
very cool. Well, I think that's about it. We're ready to wrap it up. Thank you so much for
thank you guys. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Yeah.
I'll do the outro now. Again, Dave, thank you so much for joining us. The game that we're talking about today is Shattered Dawn. You can go to drive-thru-RPG, check it out. Shattered Dawn. You can go to drive-thru-RPG, check it out today. Thank you for joining us, Dave. I said that twice, but I mean, we really do appreciate it.
Double thank you.
I appreciated it twice.
Yeah. And this is another interview from the multiverse.